Hey, this is Dr. Cam, and welcome to Maximus Live episode 61. It's unbelievable. We've done 61 of these almost every Thursday at 6 o'clock, talking about maximizing your testosterone in mind and body, whether through pharmaceuticals, nutrition, exercise, sleep, focus, or relationships. For those of you who are joining us on Zoom, thank you. We're going to have live callers in just a second. We got someone waiting on deck. Thank you for your patience. Love to do a little coaching with you. Thanks to everyone who's joining us on Instagram Live. I'm going to give you little waves and shout outs, everyone who's joining us right now. And thanks for, it sounds like we're trickling in folks on Twitter Spaces. And then if you have any questions on YouTube Live, please type them in. So for those of you who are new, I am a licensed clinical psychologist and psychiatry professor with an expertise in mind-body medicine, and particular interest in hormones, given our company Maximus. You can check us out at maximistribe.com. We have a safe and effective way for you to double your testosterone levels using prescription pharmaceuticals and health coaching. Really exciting news. We actually launched today in New York and Ohio. So if you are in the states of New York and Ohio, our protocol is live there, so our doctors are doing visits. And I'm actually really excited for the folks in New York. We're debuting a brand new medical device that actually does painless, virtually painless, blood collection. So as opposed to having to go to a lab and get a needle stuck in your arm or do finger pricks, which is the at-home collection device that we have at home, we actually have this amazing new device. I'll give you a little sneak preview of it. If you're watching on the video, you can take a look right here. This is the little device. You actually put it right on your shoulder and it draws your blood out through capillary action. It kind of like works like a leech and it doesn't hurt at all. Sends it off to a lab and we can measure your testosterone levels before and then 30 days after our protocol. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, look, don't take my word for it. Don't take our word for it. We prove it because we send your results to a third-party lab and we prove what we do works. The nice thing too is once you see your numbers, let's say you go up 1.5x, you're like, oh, I want to go up a little bit more, we can adjust your dosage. Some people actually go up 3x, and so we're like, maybe we need to tone the dosage down. We have a couple different dosages, and everyone's response is different. Looks like someone asks about LA, California coming soon. If you're talking about Louisiana, that's in the pipeline. California, we're already live. So if you're in California, it's actually the first state that we launched in. We're actually based here in LA. So you can sign up today at maximistribe.com if you're in California. We're in 15 states now, so we actually cover half of the US. And there's thank you for your question there on Instagram. Someone said, I'm interested in this, but worried about cardiovascular consequences. That's a great question. There's been this myth actually for a long time that doing testosterone replacement therapy or TRT has cardiovascular risks. If it's properly managed, that's not true. It can elevate something called hematocrit, which basically makes your blood thicker. And so oftentimes people on TRT have to donate blood every once in a while to kind of thin out their blood, so to speak. But other than that, if that's managed properly, it doesn't increase heart disease or cause other cardiovascular risk factors. In fact, if you are on the metabolic syndrome spectrum, meaning you have obesity and other risk factors, TRT can actually help people lose weight and improve their cardiovascular health. So I don't think it's inherently unhealthy for the heart. Now, what we're doing is different. We don't do TRT. We don't do testosterone replacement. We do something that I call testosterone maximization. We use a drug called enclomiphene. It works totally different. Instead of replacing your testosterone, it actually selectively blocks the estrogen receptors in your brain, which tells your brain, I'm not getting enough estrogen, I need to produce more of my own natural testosterone. So as opposed to shutting down your testicles like TRT does, which creates shrinkage and infertility, ours stimulates your testicles. So it actually increases your testicular volume, increases your fertility, and maintains it. And that's why what we do is safe and healthy for even 18-plus-year-old guys who need a symptomatic improvement or performance enhancing benefit. It doesn't raise hematocrit, it doesn't have cardiovascular risk factors. I take it myself personally. I wouldn't take something that would fuck up my heart. All drugs have potential risks and side effects. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but it's relatively low. The side effects are on the order of 1 to 3%. You can check them out on our website, maximistribe.com/science. And even in the clinical trials, they were no different than placebo, meaning if you give someone a sugar pill and you give someone clomiphene, there's no difference in side effects, which goes to show that the headaches, dizziness, nausea, etc., probably not even necessarily due to the medications, probably just due to placebo. So it is a very safe drug in the relative spectrum of drugs, and certainly one that I don't mind taking myself, take it every day, and don't mind obviously promoting to our customers. So I wouldn't stress about the cardiovascular consequences, especially if you're otherwise healthy. The only main contraindication indication that we have is if, as long as you're not on blood thinners like a Coumadin, warfarin, etc., it shouldn't be a problem.
How's it going?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's on your mind, bud?
So, been on the protocol for about 2 weeks now.
Awesome.
Some things are feeling a little bit different. As far as energy, though, is still a little low.
Okay. Well, let's rewind a little bit. How did you hear about us, and what motivated you to get on the protocol in the first place?
I actually, I think found you on Twitter.
Awesome.
Saw an ad there, and I was on. I've been on multiple different things, trying different things in the past, and this actually, when I read into it, seemed to make more sense scientifically and medically than a lot of other things I'd seen.
What have you tried in the past, out of curiosity?
I tried TRT probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I just did not like how it made me feel. Didn't like how I had to take an injection, twice a week or whatever, once a week. So this just seemed a whole lot easier.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I always tell people I can never imagine TRT being a mainstream consumer behavior, having to inject yourself in the butt. I work in the medical field, so I have no problem with needles, but it's just it's not really pleasant if you can avoid it.
Right. For sure.
Okay, so you found us. You made the switch, how's it been going so far?
Good. I mean, it's easy to follow. I mean, I have some other vitamins that I take in the morning, so I just take everything with that.
Awesome.
Have it with a small breakfast, a couple eggs. And then, I'm really just trying to get back in shape, trying to feel better overall, just health-wise.
Right.
And I started cutting out sugar back in December.
Fantastic.
And I dropped 47 pounds in 2 months.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Just from cutting sugar?
Pretty much just from cutting sugar.
Wow.
I hadn't even really stepped in the gym.
Yeah.
So got a long way to go still. I want to lose at least another 100 pounds. And
where are you at right now in terms of your height and weight?
So height is right about 6'1", and weight is about 330.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, first of all, you made fantastic progress. So just to even drop 47 pounds in the first place, let me just reinforce the shit out of that, because that's not easy, especially at the weight that you're carrying. I do agree. You definitely got more weight to lose, but I feel optimistic that if you've made that initial push, you can definitely keep going.
Yeah, that's certainly the plan. I'm starting to hit the gym. I was going pretty consistently here a couple weeks ago, and then got hit with some hectic time frame stuff going on with the family. But now my schedule at work's changing a little bit now, so I'm going to be going in the mornings before work, and that'll be a lot easier for me to make sure I'm more consistent with it.
Awesome.
Probably going to just stick to compound lifts for now and some HIIT training.
Yep.
Until I get back to the point where I feel fully comfortable just going into a 4-day split or something.
I think that sounds like a great plan. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Consistency is king, as I always like to say. I think guys sometimes over optimize their exercise routines. I'm like, look, if you're an advanced lifter or you're competing in sports, sure, we can talk about, all kinds of different splits, periodization, all kinds of stuff. But for 90% of guys, and I'm a former athlete myself, the biggest difference in terms of making gains is just the consistency of the number of days you're getting in the gym. And the research backs this. There's a lot of research that shows that if you're talking about muscular hypertrophy, meaning putting on muscle mass, volume wins, right? Doing more time under tension, more sets that you do, and sometimes even upwards of let me see, if you're doing 5 days a week, full body exercise, 3 sets per body part, you're talking about at least 15 sets per body part per week. And in fact, sometimes people do more, up to 20 and 30, and they get more gains out of it. So it really just goes to show, it doesn't mean you need to work out that much, but it just goes to show that really the consistency and the volume are going to make the biggest difference when it comes to putting on muscle.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I was an athlete myself, and I was a personal trainer. And then I just I'm also former military. I got into a really bad funk of, I wouldn't call it depression,
right,
but it was borderline depression, and just got bored and started eating, and
I hear you.
Took a desk job, something I hadn't ever had in my life. And then it all just started adding up. I think I gained, right after I got out of the military, I got into weightlifting really heavy.
Yep.
And I was around 270 and 15% body fat. So I've always been a little bit bigger. But then I gained 100 pounds in 3 years with this desk job.
I feel like that happens a lot with people who are very active, used to be athletes, military, or at least just moving around a lot. To switch to sedentariness, it takes a toll on your metabolism. And this is the number one, I'm really glad you mentioned this, the number one mistake that people make, even when they go to the gym. They think that going to the gym is enough, and it's not. You can't sit on your ass for another 16 hours a day just because you go to the gym for an hour. The metabolism literally slows down. So I always tell people, and this as a personal trainer, so I'm just saying this for the whole audience, you should do low intensity, medium intensity, and high intensity exercise. You need diversity of exercise. So weightlifting is really more, for the most part, medium intensity exercise. Doing what you're doing, 4 days a week, is perfect. I always tell people, 3 to 5 days is ideal, whatever you can keep up. It's a good idea at least once a week to do something high intensity, some sprinting, some basketball, some soccer, something that's naturally an interval. But the thing that people miss is the low intensity stuff, which is, you got to walk. And the recent publication that just came out said, well, it depends on how old you are, but the 10,000 number is not necessarily accurate. But if you're talking about guys under 60, the optimal number of steps seems to be somewhere between 8 to 10,000, actually. I always told people 7,500, it's kind of based on CDC recommendations, but based on this recent publication, you really want to be hitting 8 to 10,000 steps. And ideally, I always tell people, not just at once, but you're also doing it all throughout the day. If you walk 2,000 steps at a time, times 5 to 10 times a day, that's the best, because you're not letting your metabolism slow down like you're describing at your desk job, so that, your body's tending to put on that fat. So I really am a fan of walking and taking walking breaks all throughout the day. Even when you're at your desk, what I do, 50-minute meeting, 10-minute walk, 25-minute meeting, 5-minute walk. So I'm getting up and trying to walk all the time to prevent that metabolic slowdown, so that I'm not packing on the weight either.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, thankfully I got promoted about, a year ago. And I'm not actually tied to my desk as much anymore. So I've actually got a stand-up desk now.
Amazing.
I'm not really sitting as much. I bought a ergonomic chair that is basically like the knee chairs.
Yeah.
So I'm not just sitting on my butt all day long and working on posture and stuff like that. So good thing is I can actually walk around now.
Yeah.
I'm not just stuck to my desk. That's definitely right now I use my Apple Watch on a daily basis. I'm at 8,200 steps for the day. So we still got quite a bit of time left. So
that's fantastic. Well, I think you're doing all the right things when it comes to the exercise front. How are you doing on the eating front? So it sounds like you made some great progress cutting refined sugar. Are you continuing to lose weight on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I did add a little bit of bread back in, because I was basically I had cut out almost all carbs for the most part, just because I wanted to see how that would feel, and energy went through the roof, mostly cutting out sugar. If I was eating any carbs, it was broccoli, green beans, cauliflower, stuff like that.
Right.
As of right now, I've pretty much tried to optimize between 50 and 100 carbs. And if it's coming from anything, it's coming from broccoli. It's coming from like peanut butter, almond butter. It's coming from green beans, corn, and I'm not really eating a whole lot of bread.
Yeah.
Sticking mostly to chicken, beef, lean beef, and eggs for the most part.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't know if you've read the ebook that came with our program, Maximize Your Testosterone. If you haven't, check it out. I think it's at maximustribe.com/book, book or ebook.
Okay.
But it has a whole nutrition plan in there. And I tell people, even though I'm a big fan of low carb diets, I had a ketogenic company. You can check it out. It's goactualize.com. It's like ketogenic meal replacements. Developed a lower carb curriculum for Amada Health. For the purposes of our program, which is testosterone optimization, you actually don't want to be keto. And the reason is ketosis increases cortisol, the stress hormone. And the stress hormone is catabolic, so basically counteracts the anabolic hormones like testosterone. So you can think about almost like cortisol and testosterone kind of being at war with one another. And so the best thing you can do to increase your testosterone is make sure your stress and cortisol is low. So I do advocate what I call lower carb diets, not low carb. Low carb, to your point, like if you're talking about a strictly defined ketogenic diet, is usually less than 30 to 50 grams of net or even sometimes total carbs, depending on the definition. Verta uses total carbs per day. So you being at 50 to 100 carbs, you're technically not in a ketogenic diet, but you're on a pretty low carb diet, I would say. And I think that's fine. And in fact, it's better because your cortisol is not going to spike through the roof, if you're still consuming some carbs. I would say if you're think about carbohydrates as fuel for activity. It's not necessarily fuel for your body in the sense that we can clearly burn fat and ketones as an alternative fuel source. In fact, the brain preferentially prefers ketone as a fuel source. But we're not necessarily meant to be in ketosis all the time. I think of ketosis as like really the consequence of a failed hunt. I used to joke that the original intermittent fasting is when you failed at your hunt, and you're going to have to not eat for a little while, and so your body gets into ketosis so that you're burning your fat reserves instead of the food that you didn't catch. So ketosis I think is really meant to be swung in and out of, just dependent on food availability. Obviously, in the modern era, we're not hunting to rely on our food, so nobody's starving these days for the most part, at least in America. God bless America. So for us, really, I would say 50 to 150 grams of carbs for most men like you is more in the sweet spot. And you can adjust up and down based on two things. One is based on where you are on the diabetes spectrum. Have you ever measured your blood sugar or your A1C?
I did for a very short time, but I'm thankfully not really feeling like I have to worry about it.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to check.
I don't feel like I have a whole lot of blood sugar spikes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's smart.
I know there's a little device I can buy that'll do it.
Yeah, I would say, you can obviously go to any pharmacy and get a blood glucose monitor. I think they're as cheap as like $15. It's not a bad idea to just know where you're at. Or next time you go to your doctor, you're like, especially a guy at your weight, like you have a high risk, for being on the diabetes spectrum. So I really encourage actually everyone to check that. Because sometimes you never know. A lot of folks are also like pre-diabetic. You're not diabetic, but you're on your way. And so basically what I'm trying to say is, the further along you are on the diabetes spectrum, the more you got to watch your carbs. Other folks, whether due to genetic reasons or they do a lot of physical activity, they can be heavy, but their blood sugar is actually okay. If that's the case, consume carbs. But what I would suggest is, you got to kind of a little bit base it on your genetics. Some people, even like me, like my dad's type 2 diabetic, I'm a thin guy, but my blood sugar runs high if I eat a lot of carbs just because of, how my body processes it. Like I have low SHBG is higher chance of insulin resistance. The other thing that you should calibrate for is activity. And the story you tell about your desk job is the perfect example where guys don't adjust their diet based on their activity. And that's what you need to do though in reality. Right? So if you're doing a lot of activity, you can get away with eating more carbs, right? The more you're walking, the more you're lifting. I experienced this myself in Europe. I would have beer and crackers and a bunch of other carbs, and I'd still lose weight because I was walking, 15,000 steps a day versus in the US, I was walking half of that and eating less carbs. So adjust your carbohydrates based on your activity level. That's a really useful tip. Bread is okay, I would say, as a carb. It's not my favorite carb source. I mean, it is from a taste perspective, but focus on really less refined carbs is better. Rice, sweet potatoes. Obviously, any vegetables are totally fine. And I would say like fruit in moderation is okay as well, especially like the lower sugar fruit. Anything that's in the berry family, anything that's in the stone fruit family, like peaches, nectarines, etc. Anything that yeah, it's not like a super processed kind of fruit that's been like bred over time. So it's like a humongous banana or pineapple. I would say you want to stay away from those kinds of things. But yeah, don't be afraid of carbs. And if you're like especially consuming it right before, right after a workout, you're gonna burn those well, and it'll give you the energy to get your workout. It'll help replenish your glycogen stores after you work out. So I think it's totally appropriate. And look, in the end, as if you're continuing to lose weight, then that's ultimately what matters, right? In that you'll find the diet that works for you in terms of achieving your weight loss goals.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, very similar to like carb cycling, which is something I used to do when I was working out quite a bit. So that makes perfect sense. And that's actually something I've been kind of doing at work now. Knowing that I'm sitting there, I pretty much just, I'll have like my eggs in the morning. I might have like some plain Greek yogurt, just a real small amount, like maybe, I don't know, like half a cup or something. And then I'll have like protein shakes, low carb protein shakes, just to kind of curb hunger. And then, I'm trying to stay, with nutrition all throughout the day, as opposed to fasting a lot. I do enjoy fasting. I do it every once in a while, but I know that it's not the end all of everything.
I actually think it's overrated. You can listen to the episode I did with Dave Asprey. He just wrote a book on fasting. He's a proponent of it. It's not that I think it's bad. I just think that the research clearly shows that nutrient quality trumps nutrient timing, meaning it's way more important what you eat than when you eat. I do encourage people to just quit eating after dinner. And the reason for that is not that it's actually bad to eat at night. It's because you're eating like usually crappy junk calories that you don't need to be eating. And so just stop eating after dinner. That's like the original intermittent fasting. That's probably fine for most people. And yeah, like I said, it's ultimately more important what you eat. Bodybuilders eat 5 times a day and they still maintain low body fat, besides all the drugs that they take, or even the natural people. So it's not bad to eat like even 5 times a day, as long as what you're eating is good quality. I wanted to go back though to something you brought up. You mentioned sort of the energy levels. Is that the thing that you want besides the weight loss to kind of work on the most or improve the most?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing. I have a real, like I sleep really well. At least I feel like I do.
Excellent.
And, but I just have a little bit of an issue, like getting like out of that tired state when I wake up in the morning.
How much are you sleeping?
So I'll be honest, like I went years in the military sleeping 4 to 6 hours a day or a night, and like really operating really well with that. And then
were you using a lot of caffeine to get by?
No, actually I was not, thankfully. I've never really drank coffee in my life. I quit energy drinks about probably a year and a half ago.
Smart.
I try to stay off that stuff, but like once I get going in the morning, it's fine. But if I sleep anything more than like 7 hours at this point, it just feels like I have to come out of like a coma in the mornings. So
interesting. So it's almost like worse if you sleep more. Is that what you're saying?
That's honestly how it's felt like ever since I started. Because up until about a year ago, I was sleeping still around like 4 to 5 hours a night, and then I just said, you know what, I need to maybe try and start sleeping more. And I started going to bed a little bit earlier.
Right.
And it's almost like some days I feel good, other days it's not. So
are you waking up with an alarm clock, or what's waking? When do you wake up? Do you wake up with an alarm clock? Do you wake up the same time every morning?
I actually have a chili pad.
Yep.
And that starts heating up. It starts heating up around probably an hour before I have my alarm set. I'm almost waking up 10 to 15 minutes before my alarm every day.
Okay, so it sounds like your body's like,
just because of that heat.
Okay. You may want to. Here's the thing with I have an 8 sleep, so I understand how it works, like with the chili stuff. You may want to experiment with not with turning off the crazy temperature changes, because it basically acts like a thermal alarm clock, to your point. And I'm not sure if your body actually wants to wake up at that time, or it's kind of shocked into waking up. So you may want to. That's what I would encourage you to experiment with. Is turn off that feature. Just try to like maintain a little bit more of like a normal temperature. And the reason for that is I always tell people to actually avoid alarm clocks, except it's like as a emergency backup that you don't miss a meeting or work or something. But you want to obviously get to a point where you're sleeping early enough that you wake up naturally. By definition, if you wake up with an alarm clock, you're sleep deprived, right? Now in your case, it's a weird, like it seems like you're waking up 10 to 15 minutes before your alarm clock, but I'm not sure you actually are. In that I think the chili pad is like basically functioning like an alarm for you. So that's why I would experiment with that first and foremost and see if it helps. Second, it's very rare that someone actually can get by on 4 to 6 hours of sleep long term without stimulants. There are some people, really rare genetic variants, that somehow are okay with that, but it doesn't apply to most people. Most people just learn to function, but it's really not optimal for health. So I would say getting closer to 7 would be a good goal, but let's try to get it so that you're almost like naturally waking up. And when you do, hopefully, you're a little bit more restored. Now, the one thing that one of the things that may be getting in the way is potentially sleep apnea for a guy at your weight. Have you looked into that? Or like, do you snore, or does your partner ever mention you stop breathing at night?
So I've actually been on a CPAP for about 6 years.
Yep, great.
And I actually was using that. They gave that to me while I was still in the military.
Yep.
Like I mean, it was medical standards, but I was just not. I was not sleeping very well, and I was having a lot of headaches. I don't have the headaches anymore, thankfully.
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. Do you still use a CPAP?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's obviously going to be critical, because I was going to say that's actually probably what's been messing with your energy levels. It sounds like it's helped a lot, but there may be some other stuff that's going on. Here's what I think. Do you remember what your hormone levels were when you did our baseline test?
Yeah, I want to say I was at like 349
on total testosterone.
Yeah, in total. And my SHBG was on the higher end. And so like it kind of recommended, eating a lot of broccoli and stuff like that. Now, that's actually something I have like worked with in the past a little bit. When I was doing TRT, the doctor that I had recommended I take something called DIM.
Yeah.
And he said it was basically like concentrated like broccoli. Would you recommend I do that, or?
Yeah, DIM is a extract that's found in broccoli. It's supposed to be like a estrogen regulator. I am actually skeptical. I looked at the scientific literature on it, and it's really unclear whether it works. And so as a result, we don't include it in our protocol. So yeah, I just don't think the evidence base is there to really substantiate it. Do you remember what your estradiol levels were on our labs?
I can pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up. Yeah, because I can actually calculate your free testosterone too if you have your actual total testosterone and your SHBG.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Because with a 349, obviously your testosterone's low. It's not like hypogonadal low, generally like below 300. But you're very low. Like you'd be like somewhere in the 5th percentile, at least compared to like 19 to 39-year-old healthy non-obese men. So that may be also obviously what's sapping your energy. Is like when you're low testosterone, your energy levels aren't good.
Right. So it looks like trying to get this to blow up. So the test was 347.
SHBG.
That was 59, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 59.
Okay. And then your estradiol?
Where would I find that?
I'm not sure. Sometimes it's tested, sometimes it may not be. But if it's not on there, then don't worry about it. Um, uh, so yeah, your testosterone at 347 and your SHBG at 59. You can actually like plug this into a little calculator online, and your free testosterone, meaning the testosterone that's available to bind in the body, is actually like 46.9. It's very low. You're like a free testosterone of 55 is actually the first percentile. So you're actually below the first percentile on free testosterone. You're around the 2.5 percentile on your total testosterone. So obviously you're a great candidate for our program because you're super low. It'll be very interesting to see what your numbers are after a month from being on our enclomiphene. One thing you should talk to with your doctor about is how you feel. It may be that because you're a bigger guy, you may need a higher dosage, especially a guy that was on TRT in the past. Your hormones are kind of low, definitely on the lower end, and symptomatically, you're getting an improvement, but maybe not 100% there. Talk to him about potentially, whether a higher dose may be a good fit for you. And then obviously when you get your lab results, you can kind of see, if it's getting you into a more optimal range.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I was actually going to reach out to him because of the energy levels not really feeling like they had improved much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really complex and multifactorial, right? Like on the pharmacological side, for sure, like I think improving your testosterone will help. Now, I will say more is not always better with the medication. For some guys, like they're sensitive to higher dosages. You obviously increase the risk of side effects with the higher dosages. But if you're a bigger guy, maybe you need it and maybe you can tolerate it better. It's just this is like the challenge of the art of medicine as it is. There's no like cookbook medicine where everyone needs the same dose. So different people do different things. You're just gonna have to try it out and then see how it is. And then take care of the other lifestyle factors as well, which is like you're doing a great job on the exercise, making sure you're not being sedentary anymore, fixing kind of the sleep stuff. I do encourage you to don't give up on the 7 hours of sleep. I think you just need to tweak the waking up and maybe try waking up a little bit more naturally. And then if there's other factors like stress at play, making sure you're addressing that because that can obviously sap your energy. Are you feeling stressed? Are you still feeling depressed or down?
Actually, I'll be 100% honest. Like that was all mental for me, and I've never had a confidence issue, and thankfully I broke out of that, and I don't have any of that going on at this point. So, which is also what's helped me have the willpower to do the things I've done as far as like cutting out sugar and getting to be more physically active. So.
Well, amazing. I think you're doing great so far. I'm really curious to see. Feel free to update us whether on another one of these shows or obviously just on the Discord community about how your after numbers look. And like I said, if there's a dose adjustment that's needed, talk to it about your doctor. But I think you're doing well, and hopefully we can get your energy levels to improve even more.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
I'm
and by the way,
excited.
Join our coaching group on the Discord. We have JT, who's one of our new coaches. He's a health and fitness expert, personal trainer as well. Helped a lot of people, and he'll definitely continue to help you out with whether it's the weight loss or getting in better shape.
Yeah, I'm on there. I'm on Twitter quite a bit too. I'm always on your threads. So #TugLadouche.
Oh yeah. Very cool. I remember you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on there. I'm enjoying the conversations I'm seeing and learning a lot. So
I appreciate it. Thank you for calling in. I'm gonna hop to our new guy, and I'll see you online.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Take care. Hey.
Hey Cam, what's going on?
Good. Sorry for the wait. I always get sucked into these conversations, so I appreciate your patience.
No worries, man. All good. How's everything your way?
Life is beautiful. I'm really excited about launching in Ohio and New York and getting our services out to more people who we can help more men across the country. So that's what gets me up every day, and I was stoked to be able to get up and make that announcement this morning.
I love it. fantastic to hear. Hopefully, you all come to Illinois sometime soon.
We are
Waiting for you.
working hard on that. I actually did my fellowship in Chicago, so spent a year in Illinois.
Hey, there we go.
Love it out there, and so we're pushing as hard as we can. I actually think it'll probably in the next couple states. It'll be soon.
Solid. Looking forward to that.
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Just doing some interview prep, trying to keep my head straight, man. I feel like every other weekend I'm kind of bouncing city to city, which is has its upsides and downsides. But besides that, man, I'm doing good. I had a question for you today, though,
Yes, sir.
regarding kind of, let's say, best man duties for wedding, as it pertains to like the best man speech too. So, backstory: best man in one of my best friend's weddings in a few months. Really looking forward to it. I mean, him and I have been best friends since like 4th, 5th grade, so it's gonna be a really good time. Pretty big wedding too. I gotta tell you, I don't normally get nervous for public speaking. Like I present, decks at work all the time.
Sure.
Consider myself pretty social. I'm kind of getting nervous about the best man speech. So wanted to see if you had any just first and foremost practical tips of like calming nerves beforehand, and then maybe more like call it like just tips to kind of knock it out of the park. I really want to just nail this and do well. So not sure if you can draw from like any sort of any of your training for like public speaking or kind of getting nerves kind of under wraps before that, but would love to hear and maybe dialogue.
Yeah, this is a great question. I wouldn't say I'm the best man speech expert. I actually should get our video guy Victor here, who is married, to probably give you some tips on that. But I am an expert in social anxiety. In fact, I used to work with a lot of clients that had social anxiety, including public speaking. So I can definitely talk to you about that. So I have a very paradoxical approach for you. I think the problem is not getting your nerves under control. I don't think you need to get your nerves under control. And I know it sounds crazy for me to say that. In fact, I'm going to make the argument that your desire to get your nerves under control is actually making the problem worse. So here's the thing. Anxiety is not the problem. It's our unwillingness to have anxiety that's the problem. So if you think about it, you're getting up at your guy that you care about's wedding, and you want to nail this, you want to be a good friend, you want to have a memorable speech. There's a lot on the line socially. Now, obviously not a lot on the line in terms of like, is there any real world consequence to not giving a good best man speech? No, not really, right? No one's going to die. You're not going to get fired. There's nothing actually catastrophic at stake. But we're social creatures. We care about our reputations and what other people think about us. And so, it does matter. And so there's really no way that you're not going to feel anxious when it comes to something that you care about. In fact, I always used to tell my clients, I was like, the only way that I know of getting rid of anxiety, besides like pharmaceutically numbing it, which you can do by drinking, which I don't recommend because I can tell you a lot of, and Victor can tell you a lot of stories about slurred best man speeches and how much of a disaster that is. So don't do that. And it doesn't completely get rid of anxiety anyway. The only other way to get rid of anxiety that I know of is that you have to give up what you care about, right? So that's my question to you. Are you willing to give up caring about how you do at this wedding and care about your best friend in order to eliminate your anxiety?
You know what? Yeah, I am.
Well, can you though?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. So thinking back, I mean, outside of just the pure social context too, I mean, him and I have been through a lot. We went to undergrad together, grew up in the same block. We've been through some shit together too.
Sure.
So in the grand scheme of things, like a 5-minute speech pales, in comparison to what I think we've been through too.
Yes.
So
I think you're right in the sense that you're having good perspective and that this is not an important thing in the greater scheme of things. But what I'm asking you is, are you willing to not care about your best friend at all in order to not have anxiety?
No.
Right. Obviously not, because you care about this guy. You're going to his wedding. That's why he asked you to give the best man speech. So here's my point. Yeah. Caring and anxiety are flip sides of the same coin. It's like you can't have a coin that doesn't have a heads and a tails. You can't have anxiety without caring. The only way to get rid of anxiety completely that I know of is to not give a fuck at all. And you can't do that about things that you obviously want to continue to care about. So I'm proposing a radical counter solution, which is instead of trying to steady your nerves, get rid of your anxiety, to feel better, the alternative is to actually improve your willingness to have anxiety. So here's how I would approach it. There's two things you need to do. One, now you do care about your performance. So obviously, write a good speech, practice it as much as you can, rehearse it a bunch of times, do it in front of people. The more you do that and the rehearsal, the better you're gonna, better you're gonna do at it. You should have it basically memorized. Obviously have it on a piece of paper just as a backup, just in case, you get some short-term memory lapse, and you can always rely on it. Nobody gives a shit whether you have read off an outline or bullet cards or notepads or any of those things. So just obviously go through the motion of the rehearsal. But on the emotional side of things, when you get up there, you should expect to be nervous. You should welcome the anxiety. And the reason is it's your body trying to increase your energy levels in order to do a good job. Because think about it, if you were sleepy or drowsy when everyone's staring at you and you're trying to make a speech, you're not going to have the right level of energy to sit there and perform. Your body's giving you that surge of adrenaline in order for you to be able to stand up and perform as needed. So you should want it. You should welcome it. Your body is actually more intelligent than you realize. The problem is that when you don't want it, you're like, oh, it's scary, it's uncomfortable, I don't like the butterflies feeling in my stomach. You interpret it as a negative thing. You're like, this is not what I want. I want this to go away. So the solution is saying, all right, this is giving me the just right amount of energy for me to do the task at hand. And so I don't need to suppress the adrenaline. I don't need to suppress the anxiety. But what I can do is I can change my valence of it. And what I mean by valence is this a bad thing or is this a good thing? And I'll give you an example. If you have high energy, but it's negative energy, that would be like anxiety. That would be like anger, right? High energy, negative energy. But think, what is high energy, positive energy? What kind of emotion would that be?
High energy, positive energy.
What emotion would capture that? You're
going to joy or
joy,
happiness.
Excitement. Yeah. You're going to Disneyland. I'm giving this speech. I've been through a lot with my best friend. I love this guy. We've been through thick and thin. He's my brother. What a privilege, what an honor to be there to celebrate that day with him. You are nervous. You are your adrenaline is high, and it's positive. It's a good thing. It is excitement. It's anticipation. So that's the trick to this whole thing, and this is why I'm a big fan of it. Don't try to lower the anxiety, and by anxiety I mean don't try to lower your energy. It's impossible because it's almost physiological. Once the adrenaline is coursing through your veins, you can't just shut it down, right? It's doing what it's got to do. So what you can do is you can change the valence. Instead of interpreting it as a threat, like this is dangerous, it's unwanted, this is a problem, I'm going to forget, this is going to be a disaster, change the valence to positive and be like, good, it's welcome, I'm excited, I anticipate this. It's positive energy, right? So when you reinterpret the feelings as well, first, I don't need to get rid of the arousal. I don't need to suppress the energy, but this is a challenge instead of a threat. This is excitement instead of a nervousness. Then it's not a problem if you're nervous on the wedding day. You've done your rehearsal, you're ready to go. This is a meaningful moment. Even if you bomb it, it's not going to ruin your relationship, and you're excited. So when you come into it with that mindset, it's okay if your palms are sweaty. It's okay if you're nervous. It's okay if you're shaking a little bit. You have the energy there. You're just going to be like, all right, bring it on. My body's ready to go. It's the same thing as an athlete as a starting line. I used to race, and every single time I'd have butterflies in my stomach. Even though I'm like, I've run this a million times. I know it's going to go well. There's no problem. But my body was like, you need adrenaline. So I learned to welcome it, and I was like, it's not a problem. All right, butterflies in my stomach. I've done this 100 times before. Thank you for giving me what I needed. This is going to be an exciting day. I'm going to go crush it. So if you adopt and internalize that mindset, the anxiety is no longer a problem. You're befriending it instead of making it an enemy, and that's the best advice that I can give you.
Love it. That sounds good. Yeah, just outside of the basic speech prep, practicing a few times, having it down just for notes too. That definitely makes sense to me. I think more so it was, just the idea of like being in front of everyone and like just wanting to like have this representation of like, oh, like me doing good is like me doing good means that, like I'm getting approval from everyone else too. Whereas like in the grand scheme of things, nobody really cares that much. It's 5 minutes. So I think I was just psyching myself out there, but man, you got some good wisdom. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And you're right. Like we do care about, what other people think about us. But to your point, we engage in a cognitive bias called mind reading, right? We assume that we know what other people's are thinking. And you're right. Like most people aren't thinking about us as much as we think they are, right? Sure, they're going to be like focused on you in the moment while you're giving your speech, but like they're going to forget. They're like 5 minutes after the speech, everyone's going to be like drunk and on the dance floor anyway. They're not going to even remember what happened. So we obviously have our bias in like mind reading and also like catastrophizing, these sorts of things. So a little bit of cognitive restructuring, which is essentially what you're kind of doing informally, and just like thinking about it, not thinking positively, but thinking more realistically, is also a helpful way of, not making the anxiety worse than it has to be. So I do think that's also a helpful skill set to put in your tool belt. So let's just summarize. Behaviorally, practice, 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 ideally in front of real people so you can rehearse. Cognitively, as you said, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Realize it's not a big deal. People aren't going to forget about it. It's not going to ruin your relationship. Like even in the worst case scenario, you can handle it, right? And then, as I mentioned, on the sort of like the psychological and emotional side, instead of fighting and trying to suppress or avoid the anxiety, be like, nope, welcome the arousal, bring it on. Your body's doing what it needs to do, but interpret it as a challenge instead of a threat, as excitement instead of nervousness, and the anxiety is no longer a problem. So if you're ever curious about this, even beyond this speech, there's a great book that I recommend to everyone, including for everyone else who's listening. It's called The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. It's based on ACT. This is where like this whole, advice comes from. And ACT is really beautiful because I really think it's like an operating system for living life. And one of the core premises of ACT is the problem is not anxiety, but it's our unwillingness to have anxiety and all the things that we do to avoid anxiety. That's why do you think drinking is such a problem, right? Because it's not just that it's a social lubricant, it's because we can't tolerate awkwardness. We can't tolerate anxiety in social situations. And so we need to numb the feeling, even at the cost of it's literally a carcinogen, right? It's literally cancer causing. It doesn't do anyone any good. 10,000 people a year die from it. So that's the sad lengths that we go in order to not feel a certain way, when really the more psychologically healthy and mature thing is to be able to have more willingness to have negative feelings, right? I always tell people the goal of therapy is not to feel better, but to get better at feeling. And so that's my challenge to you, is get better at feeling anxiety rather than trying to feel better. And when you do that, your whole relationship with anxiety changes. And it goes from, as I said, being an enemy to becoming your friend and becoming your ally. And I think all the great, traditions of wisdom, including Buddhism and stuff, talk about this, right? Like that you're not fighting your parts of yourself, but you're welcoming in all the parts of you, including the parts of you that are nervous, So great question. And I wish you the absolute best at the wedding. And I think it'll be a good exercise for you to change your relationship with anxiety so that you can generalize that to all the other times in your life that you have to do hard things.
Totally. Thanks for the wisdom, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Go break a leg and go have some fun. And thank you for a great question, because I think that applies to a lot of people out there who are dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety. So best wishes.
Totally. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
And we had a comment on YouTube. Moderate anxiety is even good for you, especially at a best man speech. Your brain is more alert and you can come up with good, timely jokes.
Yes, absolutely. We had a quick Instagram comment. Is it okay for type 1 diabetes insulin pump users to be on our program? Yes. Just let your doctor know. And as long as you're continuing to monitor your blood sugar levels, it shouldn't really have a negative effect on your blood sugar levels. But we'll work with you to make sure that it's safe and effective. All right, it's 7 o'clock, everyone. Really, really great questions. I love the call-in questions that we had on the radio show. And thank you so much for joining us on Zoom, Instagram Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter Spaces. We're here every single Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And in the meantime, you can join our free community. It's at maximistribe.com/Discord. We have 1,500 men who are all working on mutual improvement, trying to be better. You can join our coaching channel if you want some coaching there. Happy to join you offline on our online, I guess, there. And if not, if you want to didn't have a chance to ask a question this week, join us next Thursday at 6 o'clock, and I'm happy to help you guide your way through life. Be happy, be blessed, everyone, and have a wonderful week.